morning. This is welcome to today's almost daily devotional. We are going to read from the book of Malachi, which is the last prophet in the Old Testament. He is the one we talk about being the precursor, the one who predicts Jesus the most strongly, which is why his book is the last in the Old Testament. And we're going to read from the second chapter of Malachi. My covenant with him involved life and peace, which I gave him, and also fears that he honored me. He was in awe of my name. True instruction was in his mouth. Injustice wasn't found on his lips. He walked with me in peace and did the right thing. He made many turn from iniquity. The lips of the priest should guard knowledge. Everyone should seek instruction from his mouth, for he is the messenger from the Lord of heavenly forces. Moreover, I have made you despised and humiliated in the view of all the people, since none of you kept my ways or showed respect for instruction. Isn't there one Father for all of us? One God who created us? So we talked yesterday about how God created the world. And so the future of our hope, the reason we can rely on hope for the future is because God has consistently been with us in the past, that God showed up for us in the past, and God continues to show up for us, is active in the world, is a creative God who is active in and throughout creation, which includes us. Now, Malachi says that the person who follows God, the person who knows God, fear could also be translated as know. And so the person who knows God does the right thing, but that God made a promise to this person. God makes promises, a covenant, to do certain things on this person's behalf. Now, it gets complicated because what we tend to do with that is we take the covenant promise and we put rules around it that don't exist. We make structures around it so we can understand how God's going to act, so we can predict how God's going to behave in a particular situation. And while we cherish our own ability to make choices and have free will, we don't often allow God the same freedom, the same ability to make choices and have free will. We want to box God in. We want to chain God up so that God's understandable to us. And if we're made in God's image, as it says in the creation, then God is given the ability to make free choices in the same way that we're given the ability to make free choices and to make decisions. And it becomes difficult for us because it's a power balance issue, right? We make free choices and we affect 20 people, right? God makes choices to act for one way or the other, and it affects all of these people. And so that seems scary to us. But we have to remember that there are parts of God that are consistent, just like there's parts of us that are consistent. I'm always going to have this nose. It may keep growing my whole life, but this is my nose, right? This is always going to be a part of me. God has characteristics that are always going to be a part of God. God has knowledge that we don't have. God has a heart of love for the creation. God gives gifts of grace. And so while we don't always understand God's actions in a particular situation or time, we can understand that God is acting from a covenant, a promise of grace, a promise of loving the creation, which includes us. But that God is able and does move in different ways and in new ways from time to time. And that may be scary for us, but it's part of the promise of the future. Because if God always acted the same way, if God did exactly the same thing all the time, and we move, we change, we become a different people or society, then we end up with a God who's over here and not a God who's interested and involved in our lives and in the creation. And then God wouldn't be the loving God anymore. God has to act according to God's principles and values and who God is. But those actions may not always look the same. They may not always feel the same because God is given freedom, just like we are, to make choices. God bless.